There are moments and experiences in our life when we really can question whether we have the ability to get through it. If you've been there, this video is for you. Hi, welcome. I'm Peggy Oliveira. Thanks so much for joining me. If you are new here or if you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you do so and click the little bell for notifications. So, I hear this from people a lot. I've experienced it many times in my own life. Having those periods of time, or maybe it's even just a particular moment when something happens and you really tell yourself, I don't think I can get through this. I don't know how to get through it. I'm not going to get through it. And that feeling is really intense. And it can feel incredibly hopeless and discouraging. But it isn't true. And when we can recognize that it's not true, when we can really connect with why it isn't true, then in those moments, even though we may be shaken to our core, we feel a grounded feeling. It's a feeling in our body, and it's a knowing in our heart and in our soul that we'll be okay. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it may not hurt. But you know that you'll get through it. Because when we say to ourselves, I don't think I can do this, or I can't get through this, I'll never understand, I'll never be able to be okay again. And one of the things that comes up often in my work is that people will feel afraid that on this journey, when things start coming up and they start feeling things that they've never really allowed themselves to feel before, that they're going to end up in this downward spiral where things become worse and worse and they can't find a way out. But in all the years I've done this work, that has never happened. Things can be hard, things can be challenging. There can be times and days and sometimes even weeks when people feel like they were better off before. And I've talked about that previously. But the truth is, and this is important to remember, and I know that I may not know you, but I can feel very certain in saying this still, because I don't need to know you specifically. I don't even need to know specifically what it is that you've been through in your life. But you're here and you're watching this. So that means that you've survived, and it means that you're open to understanding. You're open to exploring your inner world. And that tells me a lot. So, the truth is that for anybody watching this video, you have likely experienced a lot of difficulty, a lot of adversity, and a good chance that you've experienced a lot of trauma. It's a lot to go through in your life. And for many of you, you experienced much of that, if not the majority of that, when you were little, when you were still a child, when your brain wasn't fully developed, when you didn't have the freedom to choose your own life. Quite likely when you were kind of stuck in a situation that was hurtful, that was scary, painful, that you had no ability to escape. Yet, you're here. So that tells me, and it also tells you, even if you don't feel it or believe it, it says something about you. It says that you're strong, that you're resilient, you're capable, you're courageous. Yes, you. I know sometimes it's hard to trust that, or even sometimes to consider that it could possibly be true for you. But again, I know that because you're here. When you survive childhood trauma, whatever that trauma looks like, when you go through your life and experience a lot of uncertainty and unhealthy dynamics, maybe a parent that has an addiction issue or mental health issue who just isn't able to be there for you, or maybe is actually abusive. When you grow up in an environment, and maybe that difficulty is coming from your community, but when you grow up in an environment that never feels certain, at least not certain of good things, when you don't ever truly feel a sense of safety in your being, that doesn't mean that you're constantly thinking about something bad happening. Well, that could be the case, because a lot of people will say, no, I'm not afraid, or I wasn't afraid. Consciously, you may not have been, because what could you have done about it? There was so little that you had any control over. But what you could control in your mind anyway is denial. No, I'm not afraid. Everything's fine. Everything's going to be okay. And that's a coping mechanism. And during those types of times, that coping mechanism serves you really well. But even your ability to source that way of coping says something about you. And it's those things within you that helps me know that no matter what is going on in your life currently, or what may come in your life, that you have the capacity, you have the strength, you have the determination to get through it. You may not feel a connection to it, but it's there. It's there. And when we can recognize that truth, then when something comes up for us, it can really help us connect to that reality of what you've already gone through, what you've survived, how you have survived it, how you put one foot in front of the other and you go on. Even the ability to cope, however that might look, is one of the things that you can point to as assurance that you'll get through whatever that is. In my work, one of the things that comes up a lot is what I mentioned earlier about people feeling things that they haven't really felt before, and that it can feel terrifying and cause people to want to shut down and actually even pull away from healing. But the truth is that what people experience in this healing process, the feelings that they're feeling, those are not brand new feelings. It's not the first time that you're experiencing them. It's just that maybe it's the first time you're allowing yourself to acknowledge them. Because the fear, the betrayal, the sadness, the hurt, the hopelessness, whatever it is, you did feel that. You might have been completely disconnected to it or from it, but it was there. Your body remembers what it felt like, which is part of the reason that we continue to struggle into adulthood, because our body still responds in the same way. So the feelings that you experience on this healing journey, as you're allowing yourself to really connect with the truth of your experience and all that that entails, it's not the first time you're experiencing it, not the first time you're feeling it. And you've gotten through it. You've gotten through it without support. You got through it without even recognizing what was going on. And you got through it because of what innately exists within you. And all of that is still present now, even if you don't feel it. So when you're feeling the feelings, when you're dealing with something that's going on in your current life, maybe you lose somebody close to you, somebody dies, and you feel like you'll never be okay again. Maybe you're on this healing journey and you start thinking about things that you haven't really allowed yourself to think about before. Start recognizing the truth of the betrayal. That can be incredibly overwhelming and incredibly painful. But you've lived through that already. Even if you were in complete denial about it, it was still there and you survived it. So on those days when you are feeling hopeless, when you're feeling afraid that you're never going to be okay, you will, as long as, and this is so important, as long as you don't give up. Because if you give up, if you pull back, if you stop the process, if you give in to that feeling of despair that you're never going to be okay in your grief, then you get kind of stuck there energetically. And so you likely will never really feel okay. You may never really allow yourself to feel happy again because all of that feeling is kind of trapped within you. But if you don't give up, if you continue to put one foot in front of the other and have support, especially if you're healing from trauma or any childhood difficulty, or even if it's something in your current life, don't try to do it alone. Because part of how we move through those feelings, whatever they are, is by processing. And part of how we process is by sharing, by talking, by verbalizing what is present. That energy moves through. But many of us tend to cope by shutting down, by pulling back and isolating. And that gives all of it more energy. I know it's hard to believe that you'll ever feel okay when things are feeling worse than they've maybe ever felt before. When you're maybe dealing with something in your life that seems so much worse than anything else. But especially if you've experienced childhood trauma, I can feel relatively certain in saying that you've already lived through the most difficult thing in your life. Especially if it was somebody that you trusted and loved. So whatever it is, whenever it happens, you will get through it. I remember, and this was before I really started healing, actually healing at all. My mom died when I was 23, unexpectedly. And we had a complicated relationship, which creates its own issues around grief. And then 11 months later, my dad died. And we weren't really close, and he and my mom had been divorced for a long time. But it was 11 months later, and he was my only parent. And even though I hadn't talked to him really much, and I thought, I can't do this again. And I remember saying that, I can't do this again. And really feeling like I was going to be defeated in everything that I was trying to do. I had just started back to school, and I really felt like I just couldn't get through it because grieving my mom was an ongoing process. It was only 11 months later. And I felt abandoned, even more so, and I felt very alone. And I wasn't sure that I'd get through it. I didn't know how I possibly could. But in all reality, while it was painful, there was a lot to deal with, and it brought up a lot with my relationship with him, with her, from my childhood. The truth is that it wasn't more difficult than what I had already survived. It felt like it at the time because that's what was really present. That's what felt so intense, what felt really kind of uncertain for my future. That's what I was feeling right then, during that time, and therefore it felt like the worst thing ever. And that's how we are as humans. So it's helpful to remind yourself about the things that you have overcome. The things that, and when I say overcome, you've survived. You've gotten through it. You're here watching this right now, which means you continue to put one foot in front of the other and you haven't given up. And that's actually something to be quite proud of, truly. So when you're doubting yourself, I'd like to encourage you to consider kind of a mantra. I have the capacity to overcome. I have the innate strength within me. I have the capacity to overcome. I have the innate strength within me. You do, even when you don't feel any of it. I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts, comments, reactions. Can you relate? Share in the comments below. And again, if you've not subscribed, please make sure to do so and click the little bell for notifications. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up so other people can find it too. Thanks so much for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.